Good morning, Amanda.
Good day, Professor. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's nice talking to you. Well, you are in Australia, I'm in Israel, and
That's right.
And we see each other quite clearly. So it's a nice opportunity to get some information about what happened to you. So can you please tell us when were you diagnosed as a patient with multiple sclerosis?
I was diagnosed in June 2011.
I see. And how did you hear about us?
That was sheer desperation, Professor. I wasn't doing very well. Physically, I was doing well, but cognitively, I wasn't doing well. And there was nothing anyone could do for me. So I started to research anything that could help me. And I also, in that time, heard about stem cell treatment. I heard about HSCT. I heard about MSc. And I started to apply. But because I had a meningioma, there were complications for me. No one wanted to accept me to give it a go. And I reached out to you, I wrote you an email, and you said yes.
Okay. So when did you arrive to Tel Aviv? Do you remember? The year?
It would have been around November 2015.
Okay. And the treatment you got, as you recall, were mesenchymal stromal stem cells generated from placenta and cord tissue. Did you have any side effects following the injection?
No, nothing.
I see. Can you tell us the effect of treatment as far as you can, tell us objectively?
Yes, certainly. It is, Professor, it is very easy because there is such a huge difference between who I was when I left Australia for Israel and the person who returned. It was as if in a moment I got my life back. So what happened is I was a qualified financial advisor, and I was an advisor for 16 years. So I was used to doing mathematics and strategic planning and putting in place complicated strategies for my investors and my clients. And all of a sudden, I started to notice a difference in my cognitive abilities. So I went and saw someone because I was concerned about my profession. And I saw someone, and a professional person, and he took a baseline test. And he reassured me that everything, my abilities at that point in time, there was absolutely nothing wrong. In his opinion, and recorded, I actually exceeded all expectations. But then between 2014 and the end of 2015, I went for a final neurological assessment. And that assessment determined that in almost all the categories that was tested, I was either moderately impaired or mildly impaired, and in some instances, even severely impaired. So regarding my short-term memory, my visual working memory, just to give an example, I scored in the bottom 0.1% of my peer group. That meant that my brain almost straight away forgot most of what it saw. I had my children in my car the one day, and we were traveling from our home to school, which essentially is a straight road, and I got lost. My son had to navigate me to get back to home. I had a 5-point checklist to do the washing, to open the machine, to put in the washing, to put in the detergent, to close the door and to switch it on. I had a list to remind me to follow through. From being a qualified, successful financial advisor to someone who struggled to do the washing, it was devastating for me. So when I was told that my long-term memory would be the last thing to go, and that then I may forget who I was or my family, that just pushed me to really research alternative strategies. And after I came and saw you, I'm not exaggerating when I say that the next day, my husband and I, we went for a walk the day after my treatment. And as I gazed over the ocean, in that moment, it felt as if, the best I can describe it is, as if the bubble wrap around my brain that prevented information from going in and information from coming out had been removed. My world became this small, and in an instant, my world just opened up again, to a point where I am currently a bachelor student. I am a university student at the moment. I am enrolled. I'm 2/3 through with my bachelor's degree for someone who's cognitively impaired. And even if I may show you this, on my return from Israel, I was so overwhelmed with what just happened to me that I didn't want any of this information to go lost. If I couldn't shout it from the rooftops, I went as far as to write a book. I wrote a book to record my journey, because if I'm not there to tell the story, this book must tell the story.
I see. Thank you very much. And do you have also objective MRI evidence of what happened to you?
I do. I actually had an MRI about 5 months after my treatment. And that very first MRI, very shortly after my treatment, already indicated that there were no new lesions, and some of the lesions actually reduced. Now, it is very, very significant if you consider that when I was diagnosed with MS, I had about 4 lesions. And it was 4 lesions for very, very long, until I had a severe relapse in 2014. And then every time I went for an MRI, there were new lesions. There were new lesions, to a point where they didn't even count them anymore. One of the reports just said numerous on the left and numerous on the right.
That's exciting.
So for me to all of a sudden, while the disease was very, very active, to all of a sudden, for the very first time, get an MRI where there are no new lesions, that in itself is already a miracle. Yeah. And that some reduced. And since then, I had another MRI. And I think I actually had another one, because I have an MRI every year. And all 3 MRIs in unison says that the MS is in remission.
That's great.
And it is
and of course,
wonderful.
We can document it. Yeah, that's right. Excellent. What is your current condition, just briefly?
I'm healthy.
Jogging?
I do not have a current condition. I'm running. On the first Sunday in June this year, I completed my 3rd half marathon. Wow. And this one I completed in record time. This was my first marathon, my record time, my personal best. It was the first time that I did the marathon healthy. And I really wanted to do it in under 2 hours, 20 minutes. The previous one I did in 2 hours, 24 minutes. This one I did in 2 hours, 14 minutes.
I see. So you're better than normal.
I am better than normal.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's really exciting. And let's keep in touch. Send us the MRI so that we can visualize some of the lesions that you were talking about before and after. And thank you for sharing your wonderful experience with some other patients who may be happy to hear that there could be ways to block the disease progression or possibly even reverse it. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Thank you, Professor.